Viewer discretion is advised.
Boom, perfect timing.
When you asked the defendant to back up, did he follow your order?
No, he did not.
Okay.
I gave him 3 additional warnings to back up.
Okay, and did he obey those orders?
No, he did not.
You can see that I step back, and I step back again, and I step back again. But my counsel didn't do that.
I don't really want to be part of your YouTube channel. So
You already are.
Great.
You already are. He's a pig.
Excuse me?
I said he's a pig.
And I had this really crazy back and forth with these 2 people for 5 minutes straight.
So apparently he hates every law enforcement officer in the United States. All right. Please stand up, sir.
This is how the state makes money here, by putting people in a dungeon. And now I'm in this jail with no victim, and if you watch the video, there's no crime. But yet I'm still locked away in this dungeon. It's unbelievable to me. But of course, Zimmerman, the tyrannical, unprincipled judge who used to be married to Lieutenant Zimmerman, as soon as I got in court, if she could get me, she did.
Hey guys, I'm Don Andre, the creator and founder of Don Andre Investigations and ASD Docs. What you just heard was an audio clip from an exclusive jail call interview I did with Chille DeCastro, aka Delete Laws. From April to May 2024, I recorded our conversations, with his permission of course. And as I expected, he had a lot of important new information to share with me. In this video, we're going to use those jail call recordings from Chille to break down what went wrong in his case. Are we dealing with yet another instance of massive court corruption? It's a question worth exploring. Now, Chille got arrested by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department back in March of 2023 for obstructing public officer and resisting public officer. Fast forward a year later to March 19, 2024, he goes to trial. And let me be honest, I was totally stunned by the verdict. Not only was he found guilty, but Judge Zimmerman sentenced him to 6 months in jail. If you watched the trial, everything that could have went wrong for Chille did go wrong. It was unbelievable, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. So in this video, I asked Chille to explain what the happened. Now I want to give you guys a heads up. This will officially be the longest video on my channel, so I've organized this video into chapters for those of you that want to skip through. Be sure to check out the timestamps provided for you in the description of this video. And for those of you who don't know who Chille DeCastro is, no worries. I'll give you a quick recap before we dive into the investigation. Chille DeCastro, who started his YouTube channel Delete Laws in 2021, has amassed a substantial following of over 570,000 subscribers. He offers discussions on various topics including police dashcam and bodycam footage, as well as his personal perspective on law enforcement in the United States. One thing that sets Mr. DeCastro apart is his tendency to film his own encounters with the police. He often live streams these interactions, simultaneously engaging with his audience while conversing with the officers present at the scene. To many Americans, Chille DeCastro is seen as a champion of freedom, always standing up for our rights and willingly placing himself in potentially dangerous situations. On the other hand, some people just find his content highly entertaining to watch, while many supporters of law enforcement consider him a troublemaker who should be stopped. Regardless of whether one agrees or disagrees with Chille DeCastro's actions or statements, the fundamental question here is whether the punishment fits the crime. Is it illegal to film the police in Nevada? And does Mr. DeCastro truly deserve a 6-month jail sentence for a simple obstruction and resisting charge? Chille DeCastro found himself in the middle of a curious incident involving Officer Brandon Bourque of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and an unidentified woman during a routine traffic stop. It all began when Mr. DeCastro noticed the encounter and decided to pull out his phone to record the incident. Standing about 10 feet away from the driver, Mr. DeCastro couldn't help but ask if the woman was alright. Officer Bourque, upon noticing Mr. DeCastro recording, stepped out of his patrol car and requested that Mr. DeCastro back up. Respecting the officer's request, Mr. DeCastro took a few steps back, putting an additional 5 feet of distance between himself and the driver. However, Officer Bourque wasn't satisfied and insisted that Mr. DeCastro move further away. In response, Mr. DeCastro asserted his right to be present, mentioning that he was a member of the press. Tension started to rise as Officer Bourque threatened to detain Mr. DeCastro, accusing him of obstructing the situation and claiming that the woman deserved privacy. Undeterred, Mr. DeCastro reiterated that he was indeed a member of the press, hoping to emphasize his right to be there. This only seemed to provoke Officer Bourque further, who indicated his intent to detain Mr. DeCastro. Meanwhile, Officer Bourque instructed the woman he had initially pulled over to leave the scene and then turned his attention back to Mr. DeCastro. Without hesitation, Officer Bourque proceeded to arrest Mr. DeCastro, conducting a pat-down search before placing him in handcuffs.
Last March 2023, I saw a cop named Brendan Bourque had pulled over a woman in a parking lot that I was visiting those stores in that location. I immediately went over and started filming them. Brendan Bourque came out of his car and said, "Get away from my driver." He claimed that he owned her. And I said, "No, I'm not going to. I'm a constitutional law scholar and I'm going to be filming this stop." Then he walked up to the car and said I needed to back up, which I did. It's on video, it's proven. And then he let the driver go and arrested me and charged me with obstruction.
You good? Why'd they say that you were pulled over?
Before he released.
Oh, I see.
Like, what a
Oh, I see. Oh, gotcha.
You can film me. You need to stay away from my driver. Back up. Back up or I'm going to detain you.
You're going to detain me how? In which way?
Get away from my car.
Actually, I'm standing right here. I'm at least 10 feet away, officer. I got to tell you, I'm a constitutional law scholar. You can do whatever you want, but just understand something. Your name will go on the lawsuit. Mind your own fucking business. Mind your own business. I'm a member of the press. Go get in your car and do your job, little doggy. Go feed her.
You're being detained right now.
Okay, then detain me. Oh, she's free. Oh, you're going to detain a journalist?
Yes.
2015, Rodriguez.
Come over my car.
Don't put your hands on me.
Come over.
Don't touch me. Don't put your fucking hands on me.
I am going to put my hands on
No, you're not. I gotta make sure. Hey guys, make sure you guys get my people on the phone. Oh, this is so you ended the stop, you dunce cap. Did you just end the stop? So that's
Yes.
a 2015.
Come over here to my car.
No.
Come over here.
No.
Need an additional unit.
Bring your supervisor, please. Bring your supervisor, please. Don't touch
Over
me.
to the car.
You don't get to put your hands on me. Don't grab me. Don't grab me. Listen, you're not. First get your supervisor out here. You're not just gonna grab me and throw me on the ground. You've already released You've already released her. This is 2015 Rodriguez versus United States. I'll walk right in front of your car. Let's go. Sure, come on.
You need to set the phone
There you
down.
go. No. I'm a constitutional law scholar. You can't take away my
Set the
phone.
phone down on the hood.
I'm now in
You're
front.
being detained.
Please.
Now you're going to put hands on me.
No.
Come over here.
Why are you grabbing me?
Come over here.
Sure.
Over here.
Let the phone roll.
I don't care about the phone.
Why are you grabbing
Turn
me?
around.
I'm a
Turn
member
around.
of the press.
He said, "You're being detained," after he let the driver go. He went swinging his hand at me, so I put my hands up because I thought he was going to punch me in the face, and our hands touched. But he then said, "Oh, you're trying to grab me?" And then he put his hands on me. But that was after I led him back to his car that was 35 feet away. So you tell me how I'm obstructing and resisting when I first backed up a little bit, and then when he said, "Go over to my car," I walked over his car 35 feet away. And then he reached out to grab me for no reason. According to objective law, according to Wilson versus Nevada, that clearly outlines what obstruction is, and I did not obstruct. Even if he did want me to back up 21 feet, which is what he said in court, there's no statute, code, or ordinance that says I have to back up 21 feet. Every time he tells me to back up, I take a step or two backwards just so that I'm not being too difficult. So he tells me to back up, I back up a little bit. He tells me to back up, I back up a tiny bit. But he never says, I need you to back up 21 feet. That's called due notice. He has to give me due notice of what he wants me to actually do. But he didn't do that. Instead, he just said back up. And then we were going back and forth. The wind was blowing like crazy, probably 20-mile-an-hour winds. So I could barely hear him, and he could barely hear me. And then after I backed up 5-6 feet, he then let the driver go and arrested me for obstruction.
Hello, how are you? Okay. I'm Officer Bourque with Metro. Reason I don't engage my driver. Back up. Hey, back up. Back up. You're not involved. You can film, but you need to stay away from my driver. Back up. Back up or I'm going to detain you. We're obstructing. Get away from my car stop. Okay. Listen. She deserves privacy. This is not your business. Okay. You're being detained right now. Ma'am, you're free to go. Come over to my car. Come over to my car. Come over to my car right now. Come over. Listen, I am going to put my hands on you.
No, you're not.
Control 3 Robert 1.
I got to make sure. Hey guys, make sure you guys get my people on the phone.
I have an obstructive male here who's filming me.
So you ended the stop.
Yes. Come over here to my car. Come over here. I need additional units.
Bring your supervisor,
It's obstructive.
Bring your supervisor, please. Don't
come over to the car. I am going to grab you. You are going to go to the ground. Listen, you are detained right now.
No, first get your supervisor out here. You're not just going to grab me and throw me on the ground.
Arguing with me. I just need additional units.
You've already released him. This is 2014 Rodriguez versus United States.
Come over to my car.
I'll walk right in front of your car.
I am Officer Bourque. You're being detained for obstruction. You need to set the phone down on the hood.
I'm a constitutional law scholar. You can't take away
Set
my
the phone down on the hood.
I'm now.
You're being detained. Now you're going to put hands on me.
No,
come over here.
Why are you grabbing me?
Come over here to the car.
Sure.
Let it over here.
Let the phone roll.
I don't care about the phone.
Why are you grabbing me?
Turn around.
I'm a member of the press.
Turn around.
I'm not doing anything.
You're being detained right now. Turn around.
Get your supervisor.
Stop.
Hold on. Wait.
Stop.
Are your cameras on? Are your cameras on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, then
put
don't
your hands
put me
behind
in
your back.
No.
You're going in handcuffs.
Why?
Put your hands behind your back.
Can we slow down? Get a supervisor. I haven't done anything wrong.
Put your hands behind your back.
I haven't done anything wrong.
Don't make me use some tactics.
If you want to detain me, then detain me.
I am putting you in handcuffs.
But I'm not putting my hands behind my back.
You're facing the hood.
I'll face the hood.
Policy to put it behind.
Listen,
be behind your back. Right now, you're going to get a ticket.
For what?
If you do not put your hands behind your back, you're going to jail. Put your hands behind your back.
Can I turn my camera around to face me?
No.
Can we agree on that?
No, I don't know if you have any weapons.
I don't have any weapons.
Stop reaching.
There's no weapons on me, guys.
Stop
I'm a journalist.
reaching.
I'm a constitutional law scholar. You extended a stop to...
Put your hands behind your back or you're going to jail. I'm placing you in handcuffs right now.
For what reason?
Turn around.
For officer safety, right?
Turn around for officer safety.
Is the camera still running, guys? The camera's still running. I'm facing your car like you're asking me to do.
I don't care about the camera. Put your hand behind your back. Do not reach for this phone. The charges that you're going to be arrested for are obstructing and resisting. I didn't even want to have to come talk to you. I was just trying to finish my business with the car stop.
I don't know why you did it, dude.
So,
you went too far.
Because I don't know who you are.
I don't know who you are either. You know, if you're a homicide, there's a percentage of cops who sign up to kill people. Not all of them, but a percentage. So I don't know which one you are. We could have had this conversation publicly and you wouldn't get sued. If you guys said, okay, let's not arrest him, you know, here's how the cop feels, here's how I feel, you're not going to change being a cop, right? I'm not going to stop filming cops. So instead of you dragging me to a a dungeon and charge me with crimes, we could have had this public conversation about, hey, here are my boundaries of you filming, and made that a public conversation. And we were going to arrest him, but we didn't. Instead, to have this, and he was going to sue, but he didn't. Instead, we had this public conversation about what we want as cops and what you want as auditors. That would be far more productive than you taking me to a dungeon and suing. We would actually get somewhere bridging the divide.
Chille DeCastro was charged with obstructing public officer and resisting public officer. On June 1st, 2023, just 3 months after Chille got arrested, he decided to file a lawsuit. Here's Chille sharing a quick explanation of what his lawsuit is all about.
This is a 1983, which is a civil rights violation, wrongful arrest and excessive force that happened on March 15th, 2023, and for obstructing a lawful traffic stop when he refused to comply with Officer Bourque's commands to move away from the detainee. This is the whole part of the reason why I want to talk about this, because the whole idea that when you are the detainee of the state, when you're the detainee of the cop, you want somebody there with a camera filming. You want that. It says here that I refuse to comply with Officer Bourque's command to move away from the detainee. DeCastro asserts numerous causes of action under the theory that the Las Vegas Metro Police Department defendants wrongfully arrested him for discriminatory reasons for exercising his First Amendment right to film. The instant motion seeks dismissal of the majority of DeCastro's claims for failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted pursuant to Federal Civil Rules of Procedure 12B6. Specifically, the motion requests that court dismisses DeCastro's Fourth Amendment and Nevada state law false arrest and false imprisonment claims, first and eighth causes of actions. So now what they're saying here is that they are denying that I was wrongfully and falsely arrested and falsely put in prison. It was a false arrest and a false imprisonment. Now, when you take a look at that and you say, well, I was arrested for simply filming. That's all that I did. So then it is a false arrest and it is a false imprisonment. And that cop could have continued to do his job if he'd asked her to step into his vehicle, and so they could have had a private moment. The only claims defendants are not contesting are DeCastro's Fourth Amendment excessive force claim, first cause of action, and Nevada state law claims for assault and battery, sixth and seventh claims of action. So in other words, they are not denying, I don't know what the internal affairs outcome was because they wouldn't give me any information, but they are not denying that they used excessive force on me when they put me in the torture cuffs. This is the most important part of this entire motion to dismiss, which is the claims the defendants are not contesting. So the state is not contesting. Las Vegas Metro Police Department is not contesting that DeCastro's Fourth Amendment excessive force claim are not invalid. So they're admitting it. They are admitting that they abused me on camera.
Right from the start of the court proceedings, it became evident to me that something suspicious was happening. Chille would always keep me updated on how his case was progressing, and one thing he found really strange was how many times his case got postponed. I distinctly recall it being continued multiple times, maybe about 3 or 4 times. I think it's important to mention that it was the Nevada prosecutors themselves who kept requesting these continuations, so Chille wasn't to blame for any of it.
So my name is Chille DeCastro. My channel is called Delete Laws on YouTube, Delete Laws on Instagram. I was arrested in Las Vegas for filming the police. I took the arrest, I went to jail, and now I have to deal with the court. I shouldn't have been charged, I shouldn't have been arrested, but if you're gonna be a freedom fighter and you're gonna step up and you're gonna film cops, then part of that is you very well could get arrested. You have to be willing to take that on. So what people don't understand from their point of view, from the peanut gallery, is that the process of what I go through is extraordinarily real. I have to put on a suit, I have to put on a tie, to wake up in the morning, I have to come here, and my freedom is literally on the line. They can snatch my freedom away anytime. Alex and I were sitting in there, and they brought in 6 men in chains, and I asked the guards, do these guys try to escape? And she said, I've never had anybody try to escape, but yet we still bring people in chains. And that's the whole reason I do what I do. As far as the semantics of court and all those things, I probably can't get into any specific details. I can tell you this, that I'll take this to the very edge, to the very limit of how far I can go, because I will stand on my rights. You have constitutional rights and you have Nevada constitutional rights. And you should use your rights completely and fully and never back down from them. Stand on your rights, even if other people think you're rude or aggressive or hostile or mean. As long as you're not actually hurting people and you're just standing on your rights and you're being strong with that, then that's why I'm speaking to you right now. Stand on your rights and don't give a single inch.
No, Your Honor, we filed a motion to continue.
Oh, I see it.
No motion. Put Ms. Jefferson filed a motion. She put Mr. Me on notice of this on November 29th, so we're asking to reset the trial based on the motion we filed.
Did you receive a copy of the motion?
Your Honor, I have a copy of the motion if I could be heard on that.
Yep.
So it looks to me that the subpoena referenced in the affidavit was not timely submitted 10 days prior to this date. Beyond that, Your Honor, all the information in the affidavit is that the officer is currently on leave under the Family Medical Leave Act, but there's no information about whether he's in this jurisdiction, out of this jurisdiction, if this is a medical issue. For the witness to be absent for the purposes of Hill, there either has to be an absence from the jurisdiction or a medical issue. Now, this might imply one of those situations exists, but I have no information one way or the other to confirm if that's the case. Just because he's on leave, he could be on leave within this jurisdiction and able to appear. So there's not enough information in the affidavit to grant the motion to continue. I'll submit on that ground. Thank you.
So there is no 10-day service of subpoena requirement for Hill. That's not a part of the Hill case. In fact, the Hill case doesn't actually even require service of a subpoena. It's a due diligence showing by the state that they exercise their due diligence in attempting to acquire the witness. The information from the officer was that he's gone on the Family Medical Leave Act and is unable to appear in court. And I know that I don't know the specifics, but I know that there are rules in terms of what someone can or can't do when they are on FMLA leave. And so that's the information we were given. We're asking the court to continue this matter until after January 2nd, when the witness is no longer on FMLA leave. We're not asking for some crazy amount of time. It's a reasonable request. The defendant's the other consideration is that the defendant's out of custody, and there's no real prejudice to the defendant by granting this motion to continue until January 2nd. If he was in custody, obviously that'd be different. But I'd ask the court grant the motion based on the submission by the state.
I was not here on November 30th, but the minutes say that the state represented that they will be filing a whole motion to continue the bench trial as the lead officers are available. So I think you are aware of that on November 30th.
I was aware of that. The motion had not been filed all that time, but it was discussed at that hearing, yes, Your Honor.
So it was actually filed that morning, later in the morning. So the state has met their burden under the Hill case. I will grant the motion to continue. I will set it on a date in January after which the officer is available. And I'm happy to set it at the convenience of both parties.
Your Honor, if it is going to be January, my availability later in the month would be better.
Later in the month would be better? More towards the end of January?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, how about January 23rd at 9:30?
That works for the defense, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
January 23rd, 9:30. Out.
The docket on the case that I pulled up this morning. Here's the case number, the year, criminal, case number itself, Jose DeCastro, Department 8 of the Justice Court right there. And anyway, here are the two charges he's being accused of, and then the statutes, Nevada Revised Statute 190 and the other one. So resisting a public officer and a false statement or obstruction of a public officer. So here's when the case was filed on March 15, 2023. Here was something interesting. So let's take a look here. Judge Zimmerman, she's a justice court. That's Zimmerman, Department 8, Township Justice Court. She's got jurisdiction over this case. And she was in the Attorney General's office. We got a prosecutor here who became a judge. That happens a lot, happens more than you think. But she also practiced criminal defense, so she had it on both sides of the aisle. Look at the charges. The first misdemeanor, obstructing a public officer. Okay. Every person who, after due notice, I'm giving you a lawful order. Shall refuse or neglect. Refuse would be willful. Neglect would be negligent. Okay, so it's willful or negligent. To make or furnish any statement, report, or information. Turn over your driver's license, insurance, registration. Lawfully required by any public officer, and they've got a lot of case law backing that up. Or who in such statement, report, or information shall make any willfully, that means deliberately, untrue, misleading, or exaggerated statement, or who shall willfully hinder, delay, or obstruct. And the discharge official shall, where no other provision of law applies, be guilty of a misdemeanor. That's a very broad statute. Basically, if someone gives you a lawful order and you want to mess around with them, they can charge you for this. It has nothing to do with the traffic citation of running a red light. You've just now entered the world of infraction to misdemeanor. The next charge, another misdemeanor, Nevada Revised Statute 199.280, resisting a public officer. Now, when we say that you resist him, we're not saying in terms of temptation. We're talking about deliberate noncompliance. A person who, here's another one of those all-purpose type of criminal statutes. You got to be careful, guys. A person who, in any case or under any circumstance, is not otherwise specially provided for, willfully. So that's deliberate. That's the standard here we got to deal with. Did you do it? Willfully resist, delays, or obstructs a public officer in discharging or attempting to discharge any legal duty of his or her office shall be punished. Okay, well, one doesn't work. If it's a firearm, it's a felony. We don't have any dangerous weapons here. Number two, dangerous weapons. Nope, don't have it. Where no dangerous weapon is used in the course of such resistance, obstruction, or delay for a misdemeanor. So he'll be charged. He's being charged under 3 because he did not use a weapon or dangerous anything. Maximum 6 months, $1,000 fine. Here are some of the common defenses: that he lacked willfulness or acted in self-defense, or that the arrest was illegal. So here's where I mentioned before with the federal cyber stalking statute. When you like to post videos of the things you do, I'm here to delete laws, I'm here to overturn Terry versus Ohio, I'm here because the police are pigs. Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this prosecutor might just throw in a few videos for the trial. And it would be under the idea of pattern, habit, custom, practice, knowledge, and to show willfulness.
Your Honor, Michael D. on behalf of Jose DeCastro. Jose DeCastro is present on video this morning. Your Honor, I spoke to the state on Friday and I asked to call this matter off. I'm in federal court in about an hour. I was not here, unfortunately, last time when that date was set. If we could please get a new date, Officer Burns out definitively be available on that date.
It's going to be in 2 weeks. This has been going on since June of last year.
And Your Honor, if you could just,
In your case,
if the officer requested that it'd be Tuesday through Thursday. It's better for him. It could be any day, but.
for every 2 weeks on a Tuesday through Thursday.
My schedule's better on Monday and Friday.
Too bad.
I'm sorry, what did you say, ma'am? I couldn't hear you.
I said too bad. We're not open on Fridays.
March 19th at 9:30.
And I am available with Your Honor. Thank you.
Thanks to our Nevada judges and their wonderful cameras. They were there this morning. Chille DeCastro's trial did not go forward today, February 26, 2024. There was already 3 prior continuances. The judge had ordered no further continuances, but it turns out the police officer could not make it on today's date. So therefore, the judge ordered it to March 19th. Chille appeared remotely via Zoom. Remotely via Zoom is pretty standard fare on all civil matters. Criminal matters are usually quite different. Now, just looking at this from a California perspective, that's really all I can do. Penal Code Section 977 allows a defense attorney to appear on behalf of his client without the client present. So we'll come back on March 19th and see it again. I really can't imagine, but who knows? Another delay. This is definitely very unusual for a misdemeanor case to see the continuance was getting racked up this way. But remember, Chille didn't cause this continuance. So he did get a pass by appearing remotely. I think that because of the vagueness of the statutes, because I think the statutes really are unconstitutional. Again, this is from a California point of view, not a Nevada point of view. And because the statutes are so broadly worded, I mean, they're basically all encompassing statutes. I think even innocent people get swept up in them. I think he'll be convicted, at least on 1 count. But we'll see. He's presumed innocent. As I showed you in the last video, there has been no request to preserve his constitutional right to a jury trial. And there was also where he waived his right to a speedy trial under the Nevada Revised Statutes. In a justice court, he was allowed to have his case heard within 30 days. So there's 2 constitutional rights that he waived. Remember in the first video, in the press conference that Nevada judges did. He said, you need to protect your rights, you need to preserve your rights.
And you should use your rights completely and fully and never back down from them.
Since I personally know Chille, it was quite surreal for me to witness the trial unfold. Right from the start, there was this eerie atmosphere in the courtroom, and it didn't take long for things to escalate into a back and forth exchange between Chille, the bailiffs, and the judge. In my interview with Chille, I couldn't help but ask him what exactly had happened, what caused him to lose his cool so rapidly. This is what he had to say.
So before court started, I was talking to two supporters sitting behind me, and every time I talked to supporters or trolls or anybody else, I always recorded. And so I have this 3 to 5 minute recording. And what happened was, as I was talking to them, I was tilted over to the left-hand side, so my knee was kind of up on the bench in the courtroom. And I leaned over talking to them, and the bailiff came over to me while I wasn't seeing him coming up and stood over the top of me, 1 foot away from me, looking straight down upon me. And then he said, turn and face straight in the court bench. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. There's no statute, court, ordinance that says I have to turn and face a certain way in a bench. And then he called over, he said, I'm going to call my sergeant over. And then he called the sergeant over, and I told her the same thing. No, I'm not going to turn and face the way. You're just demanding me around. There's nobody in here. There's nobody even on the bench besides me.
All right, is the expectation that Mr. Holmes will be present in 2 weeks?
What's it? Put your foot down. Why? You're in court. You're not going to tell me how to sit. I'll sit anywhere I want. It's our court. You can go to hell. I'll sit right here all I want. I'm sitting right here. You can go suck a dick. Get away from me. There's no reason to approach me right now. Leave me alone. Get the fuck away from me. You want to tell the chief? I'll tell anybody who needs to hear it. Get away from me. My leg up on this bench isn't hurting anybody. There's nobody on the bench. You're the only one that's got a problem with your ego.
Actually, I have a problem.
I don't care if you have a
You're not
problem.
at home. Put your feet on the floor.
I'm not going to do it. I'm going to sit exactly how I like. Eat my shorts. Get the hell away. Go. I don't give a damn what you do, lady.
Thank you.
Jackboot thug pig. Your Honor, he's not sitting how I want him to sit. Wah, wah. He's not sitting how I want. Wah. Go cry a river, lady. Yeah, shut your mouth. Don't ever talk to me again. Mind your business. Mind your business. You just want to come over and give me a directive because this is the only thing you can do? You ain't shit, Jack. Drop the badge and gun, buddy. You ain't shit. Come over, tell me how to sit, eat my shorts. You need a... Hey, shut your mouth. I'm sitting on a bench, no one's next to me. Shut your stupid mouth. You just want to direct people around. You are a pig. You are the definition of a pig. You are, buddy. You are. I'll meet you at the gym. Let's go get a workout together. Let's go, buddy. And then see if you give me a directive. You bitch. Yeah, exactly. Just let me be. I'll sit how I want. This isn't New York subway where there's rules to sitting. You see how far it's gone? You see how far it's gone? Came and stood over me with a gun and a badge. You don't have a right to tell me how to sit. There's nobody else around me. The only person bothered about it, by you. Oh, what's the code or statute? What's the code? What code is it? What statute is it? Is there a code you can't have your leg on the bench? You're in contempt of court for sitting how we told you not to sit.
And so this went on for like 3 to 5 minutes. And then after that, he went back and talked to the judge. Can you imagine what he told her?
Good morning, Agnes Botello for the state.
Are you Mr. DeCastro? Can you turn off your phone, please? The one that's in your hand?
Just communicating with my lawyer. He's on his way here now. So I'm just waiting for him to get there.
All right, I'm gonna wait for your attorney, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jose DeCastro, 23 CR 013015.
Good morning, Your Honor. Agnes Botello and Lynn Kay for the record. Good morning, state.
Good morning, Mike. Me on behalf of the defendants present with me this morning.
So I have signed 2 media requests that permit recording or photographing these proceedings, but I have not granted any other requests to record or live stream these proceedings. So I need Mr. DeCastro and everybody else who wants to stay in the courtroom to surrender their phones, or you can leave.
Are your phones open and I'll take one or you can exit.
I need Mr. DeCastro to empty all of his pockets.
What's that?
Yeah, empty your pockets and give up your phones to the judge.
Okay.
I have to give you my phones?
Yeah.
My phones have to be completely off.
Yep. I don't really want to be part of your YouTube channel. So.
You already are.
Great.
You already are.
Awesome.
I'm not gonna get into this guy though. I'll get into someone else. I'm not touching
No,
myself.
no, they're gonna go to my marshal.
He's a pig.
Excuse me?
I said he's a pig.
Okay. So I'm not gonna permit you to speak to anybody in my courtroom in that manner. And if you don't want to apologize, I'm gonna hold you in contempt.
I apologize to the court, Your Honor.
No, you can apologize to, they've done nothing to you.
Actually, Your Honor, when you were here, you came over and gave me a directive for no reason and started telling me what to do.
Okay, well.
I have all the respect in the world for the court. I follow the rule of law all the time.
No, it is their job to maintain the safety and security of the courtroom.
I agree with you, Your Honor.
So if you want to speak like that in my courtroom, I'm going to hold you in contempt. And if I hold you in contempt, you're going to jail. That is not my wish. Okay?
I wish you would.
All right. So I need you to empty your pockets too. Suit pocket, pants pocket.
This is illegal. This is a violation of my Fourth Amendment.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. I don't have any recording devices on me. What are you talking about?
How about suit jacket?
I don't have anything on me. This is preposterous.
No, it's
This
not.
really is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Me, your phone too. Off.
They're recording everything.
They have a media request.
Right, and I'm not recording anything. Your guy here took my phone, so his phone's not on.
Right.
Should make sure you have to take the lawyer's phone too?
No, I'm not going to take the lawyer's phone. He's an officer of the court. All right. Do we have everybody's phones? Are they off? All right. Good. All right.
As soon as court started, then the judge had me searched with the same bailiff. So in the same 5-10 minutes, the guy assaulted me twice. I want you to let them know, Andre. That's why I was the jerk in court. They triggered me. You go snatching my phones out of my hand, and I called the bailiff a pig. I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't advise it, and I wouldn't behave that way again in court. But look at why my behavior was that way. She illegally searched me. The bailiff was ripping my pants pockets out of my slacks. It was ridiculous the way I was treated, and I was triggered, and I called him a pig. He put his physical hands on me, and I used words, and then she threw me in the dungeon for 6 months.
All right, this is the time set for the trial of State of Nevada versus Jose DeCastro, 23 CR 013015. Is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
How many witnesses do you have?
We anticipate one.
All right, is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I have your request to convert counsel to standby counsel. I'm going to deny that request. Either you represent him or he should have previously requested a Faretta canvas to represent himself. That I just consider that a delay tactic, so that request is denied. Are you ready to proceed? Otherwise, I'm assuming you are.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, will the state please call the first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Brandon Bourque, and he's in the anteroom.
Morning.
You're going to remain standing. Raise your right hand to be sworn back. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. State your name for the record and spell it first and last name, please.
It's Brandon Bourque.
Sir, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Sir, how are you employed?
I'm a police officer with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
How long have you been employed with Metro?
Just over 8 years.
What is your, what's your occupation there? Like, where are you assigned?
I currently am a field training officer at Zimmerman Area Command.
Okay. And so are you a patrol officer?
Yes, ma'am.
That also trains newer officers?
Yes.
Okay. And so you were employed as a patrol officer back on March 15th of 2023?
Yes.
At some point in time, did you conduct a traffic stop while you were working in that capacity?
Yes, I did.
On that date?
Yes.
Okay. And why did you stop that vehicle?
I had conducted a DMV records check on that license plate, and it came back expired and suspended.
And where is it that you stopped that vehicle?
It was 4155 South Grand Canyon, which was near Target.
Okay. Is that over on Flamingo and Grand Canyon?
Yes.
Okay, and that's here in Las Vegas, Clark County, Nevada, sir?
Yes.
And you indicated it was for a license plate that was expired and suspended?
Yes.
At some point, while you were still in your vehicle, in your patrol vehicle, did something occur that's causing you to have to testify before Judge Zimmerman today?
Yes, I had an unrelated person come over to start recording the traffic stop.
Okay. Can you describe this individual?
He was a white male adult. He was wearing a bright colored hoodie and blue jeans.
Okay. That individual, do you see him here in court today?
Yes, I do.
Can you please point to him and describe something he's wearing?
He's wearing a suit and a blue tie.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect identification of the defendant.
So ordered.
And so, what do you do upon seeing this individual approach the driver of the vehicle you had stopped?
Initially, when I saw him, he was just recording. I ignored him and continued my records check. Then when he came over to the driver and started speaking to them, I got out of the car, approached the driver, and told DeCastro to back up.
Okay. And so when you first laid eyes on the defendant, approximately how far away was he from the driver of the vehicle in the Hyundai?
Approximately somewhere within 5 to 10 feet.
Okay. And you indicated that he was recording?
Yes.
Okay. What did you see that led you to believe he was recording?
He had his cell phone camera pointed directly at me.
Okay. And so is that when, upon seeing him being that close to the driver, is that when you told him, you walked up to the driver of the stopped vehicle and asked Mr. DeCastro to back up?
Yes, once he started talking with the driver.
Okay. And why is it that you did that, officer?
Well, I can't have unrelated people next to my traffic stops. I don't know if he's a dangerous person, armed. He could be a boyfriend of the stopped person. It's for my safety and the safety of the person I've stopped.
Okay. Because you're also in charge of the safety of the individual that this unrelated individual is making contact with. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And so you saw it as an officer safety issue as well as a safety issue for the driver?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you approached, well, you said he was recording, the defendant was recording. At any time, did you tell him to stop recording?
No, in fact, I told him he can continue recording.
Okay. He can continue to record given what?
As long as he backed up and gave me an appropriate distance to work.
Okay. And so when you asked the defendant to back up, did he follow your order?
No, he did not.
Okay. And so what did you do next?
I gave him 3 additional warnings to back up.
Okay. And did he obey those orders?
No, he did not.
And what, if anything, did you do with the driver of the stopped vehicle, the Hyundai?
At that point, I chose to release the driver of the Hyundai and then focus my attention on Jose DeCastro.
Okay.
The cop on the stand lies and says he didn't step back, but you can see on video that I did step back.
And can you tell Judge Zimmerman the nature of your interaction with the defendant after that?
I ordered DeCastro to the front of my patrol vehicle while pointing at it and told him that he was detained.
Okay. And what was the purpose of detaining him?
For obstructing my initial traffic stop with the Hyundai.
Okay. And did he obey your lawful order?
No, he did not.
And what happened next?
He continued filming me. I continued pointing toward my patrol vehicle, continued telling him he was detained. All the while, he just continued shifting his body around, recording me on the phone, and refusing to go to the car.
Okay. So what did you do in response?
I used my hand to escort him to the patrol vehicle. So I placed my hand on his shoulder, and at that point, he swatted my hand away.
And what happened next?
That's when I grabbed him by the shirt, and I spun him around, and then we ended up at the front of my patrol vehicle. We were both still standing.
At some point, did you request additional units to respond to the scene?
I did. That was before I grabbed him.
Okay.
When I initially detained him.
Okay. And, I'm sorry, once you had him at your patrol vehicle, or the front, the hood of your patrol vehicle, what happened next?
Officer Dingley, another officer in the area, had arrived, and he came over to help me handcuff him.
Okay. And were you successful, or did the defendant cooperate in being handcuffed?
He did not cooperate. I told him 7 times to face my patrol vehicle. He did not listen. I told him 6 times to turn around. He did not listen. It wasn't until I told him that he was going to go to jail that was the consequence of not listening, that he allowed us to handcuff.
Okay. And after he was handcuffed, but when he was handcuffed, was it just you and Officer Dingle present?
Yes.
Okay. Once he was handcuffed, what, if anything, happened next?
He continued to argue with my partners, Officer Dingley and some other officers that were starting to show up. And then I focused my roles in completing the report and calling the sergeant because he requested a supervisor.
Okay. And at some point, was he arrested for a count of obstructing a public officer?
Yes.
And also for resisting a public officer or resisting arrest?
Yes.
At any point in time during your interaction with him or your continued visual of his interaction with other officers, did he cooperate with any of the officers present at the scene?
No, he kept shifting around, and normally we have people stand still in front of our car, and I could hear him arguing with the other officers.
Officer, are you able to see, there's not a screen over there, so I might have to bring mine over to you with the board's permission. Okay. Okay. Very loud.
Hello, how are you? Officer from Metro, reason I'm pulling you over is your registration is expired and also suspended. I'll give you the specific reason why it was suspended, and then you just have to correct it through them. But anyway, that's the reason why I'm pulling you over. The registration is expired and suspended. You're welcome. Don't engage my driver, back up. Hey, back up. No, can we agree on that? No, I don't know if you have my hands. I don't have the weapons. Stop reaching. There's no weapons on you guys. Stop, Judy, please. I don't care about the camera. Put your hand behind your back and don't reach for this phone.
And that concludes the 12-minute and 31-second video. The video marked 468_1.mp4. Officer, at some point after this interaction that we just saw, did you come to realize that your body-worn camera had accidentally or inadvertently turned off?
Yes.
Okay. And at what point in time did it turn off?
It would have turned off at the completion of the video that we just saw. Prior
to what?
Prior to the handcuffing.
Okay. Did you we noticed Officer Dingle show up to the scene though?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know whether he had his body-worn camera turned on?
Yes, it was activated.
Okay. And so what would have been missed by the inadvertent turning off of your body-worn camera would have been captured on Officer Dingle's body-worn camera?
Yes.
Okay. And then turn your attention now to the video labeled 416B-.mp4. And I just played the first 13 seconds. Now, for the record, the video is upside down. I recorded upside down.
Why would it record upside down?
Ma'am, there's a setting in the application where you can rotate it. This officer may not have checked that beforehand.
Okay. Stopping or starting at 4:54 timestamp on the video that we've been talking about. Do you recognize what's depicted, at least in this still portion?
Yes, this is me and DeCastro in front of my patrol vehicle.
Okay. And so, to your knowledge, after having watched this, does this fairly and accurately depict your interaction with the defendant on March 15th of 2023 as caught on camera by Officer Dingley's body-worn camera?
Yes.
Move to admit 416B or 8.mp4.
No objection.
Do we know if it's an 8 or a B for sure?
It looks like a B too.
Okay.
Thank you.
3, I lose. All right.
Okay.
416B.mp4 will be admitted and published.
Thank you. And I'm just going to start from 4:54. And may I approach you on it?
Can we move the water bottle so we can see it too?
Of course.
Thank you.
You can come on.
You can.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any way to rotate it so it's right side up?
Just the video. This way for you.
There you go.
So the prosecutor pulls up his laptop and she turns it upside down because the picture's upside down on her laptop. And then she's showing the judge the laptop, but we can't see it. My lawyer can't see it, I can't see it, none of us can see it. So she's presenting this video evidence, but we don't have a chance to rebuttal it. Mr. Me has not printed out any screenshots of the video showing I was standing here inside the line, and then a minute later I'm standing 3 feet back behind the line. So there's no printouts that show where I was standing once and where I was standing again a few moments ago. And then additionally, when the prosecutor is presenting this laptop to the judge, nobody can see what's being presented, so there's no way to object to anything. The only person who could see the video was the judge. It was a horrible presentation. It was a total kangaroo court. It was absolutely ridiculous. It's just so phenomenal that I'm in this freaking dungeon. And you look at the court case, the court trial, and it was just total crap. There's just no way I should be convicted of obstruction in this dungeon when, number one, I did not obstruct, and number two, I shouldn't have been put in jail anyway.
So, officer, did the body-worn camera portions that we played, or that I played, fairly and accurately depict your interaction with the defendant on March 15th of 2023?
Yes, it did.
Concerning, I just want to talk with a little bit about what was depicted in the video. In the video from your body-worn camera, it shows, you know, the state of your stop with the Hyundai driver. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point prior to you making contact with the defendant, you noticed him kind of recording further away from the vehicle, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And at that point in time, you didn't have a problem with that. You didn't really approach the defendant yet, correct?
Correct.
It was when he started making contact with the driver, your stopped driver, that you approached him and asked him to back up.
Yes.
And at some point in time in the video, it's recorded, you told him that he is allowed to record, but he just needed to back up.
Yes.
Okay. And what was the reason for you trying to maintain, one, the lack of no contact with the stopped person, and two, trying to gain distance between the defendant, yourself, and the stopped driver?
My first intention is I wasn't trying to delay my traffic stop any longer than it had to be. I was trying to make it as short as possible for the driver. And then the second was for officer safety. What we're taught in the academy is that for a normal human's reaction time with open ground, anything within 21 feet, that suspect would be able to charge an officer without them being able to react in time.
All right. And at that point in time, you were the only officer present, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when he began, or when the defendant failed to obey your command to back up, that's when you decided to engage him?
Yes.
Okay.
When the cop got up there on the stand and testifying, he testified to this magical 21-foot rule that they taught him in the police academy, that people have to be 21 feet away from you or they can run up and stab you. Then he said that he didn't mind me filming, but at the same time, we had to observe this 21-foot rule that is completely a made-up fabrication in his mind. There's no statute, code, or ordinance that says that I have to be 21 feet away. And then even if I did have to be 21 feet away, and if he wanted me to be 21 feet away, then he has to give me what's called due notice and inform me, hey, I want you to be this many feet away over there. But he didn't do that. And then additionally, when he testified, he said that I didn't step back. Well, the video evidence shows that I did step back. So he just lied the entire time he was on the stand.
I have no more questions for this witness. Thank you.
Good
morning, officer. How are you doing?
morning, sir. I'm well. How are you?
Very well. How many feet did you order the defendant to back up specifically?
I never had an opportunity to give him an exact distance.
How far back did you intend to have him back up, even if you didn't express that?
In the background of the video, you could see that there was a parked semi-truck and a light pole. I would have directed him somewhere in that area, which would have been outside the 21 feet.
Your testimony is you never told him an exact distance to back up, correct?
Yes, he never allowed me to.
What do you mean he never allowed you to?
I asked him to back up, and he continued arguing with me, so I can never specify exact distance for him.
But you had time to give him 5 commands to back up, is that correct?
Yes.
Your testimony is he never backed up when you were giving him commands, is that correct?
If he backed up, it may have been inches, but he didn't substantially back up.
And you just reviewed the body-worn camera from your chest, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't notice him backing up every time you directed him to back up?
He did not back up.
So you backed up 0 feet, in your opinion? Based on that video?
Not 0 feet.
What was that?
He didn't back up 0 feet, he was moving his feet. As to exactly how far he moved back, I don't know, but it wasn't substantial.
What would have been substantial in your opinion, or what do you mean by that?
I would have guided him if he wasn't arguing with me back toward the light pole and the parked semi-truck.
And
would have been outside of the 21 feet. That was my goal.
So in your opinion, you have the ability, or you would in any traffic stop, ask somebody to move back 21 feet, is that correct?
Yes, for our training.
And what was that training?
That while we're conducting lawful activity, we're allowed a reasonable distance to conduct our activity.
But where do you get that 21 feet number from specifically?
That's taught to us in the academy. It's based on reaction time, normal human reaction time to a threat.
So your position is anytime you're engaged in any law enforcement activity, you would create a 21 feet perimeter?
Not necessarily. It depends on other environmental factors such as obstacles and barriers.
So your testimony is that every time you conduct a traffic stop, as long as there's no barriers, you would order a pedestrian to back up 21 feet, is that correct?
I would, yes.
Okay. What training do you have in regards to the First Amendment?
It's standard academy training.
Can you explain what that entails?
Usually includes a classroom setting, PowerPoint taught by a police officer, academy officer.
Do you remember receiving that training specifically?
Yes.
How long ago was that?
When I was first employed about 8 years ago.
Do you have any follow-up training?
Specifically on First Amendment, we've had some follow-up training regarding First Amendment auditors.
Okay, can you explain what that follow-up training was?
The follow-up training was just a refresher on the First Amendment and how the department wants to handle or react to First Amendment auditors.
In that training, did they explain any case law governing how many feet somebody has to move back or anything like that?
Objection, Your Honor, at this point, relevance. I think it's beyond the scope of, the charges that you are to determine guilt on at this time.
Can you tell me what's the relevance?
Yes, Your Honor. He detained the defendant after issuing commands to back up a particular distance. He's testified he's received training. I should be entitled to cross-examine him about what that training is and how he's coming up with the specific numbers he's using to
I think her objection was with respect to the case law that you're inquiring about.
Your Honor, our position is if he is issuing commands that are contrary to that case law and he's been trained on that case law, then there can't be an obstruction of justice.
So I'm going to sustain the objection and ask you to move along.
Have you had any prior issues enforcing the First Amendment?
No.
Prior to this event taking place, had you heard of Jose DeCastro?
No.
Do you recall when you first heard about First Amendment auditors specifically?
It would have been in the academy.
So that was when you were first trained? You had heard about the auditors back then?
Yes, when we were learning about the First Amendment, they would typically bring up issues that might be a frequently seen thing. And First Amendment auditors are typically the ones that we encounter when there's First Amendment claims against us.
Do you have any belief that First Amendment auditors are likely to be violent?
Objection, relevance.
What's relevance?
Uh,
I'm only concerned with Mr. DeCastro. Okay.
Your Honor, one of the legal issues at question here is whether or not these commands are reasonable. I think that has to be based upon his past experiences in training.
Sustained.
During this traffic stop in particular, what specific factors led you to believe there might be a danger to officer safety?
Based on his proximity to my driver, based on his demeanor being argumentative, based on his physical demeanor, his veins were popping out of his neck as he was yelling at me.
You could see his veins popping out of his neck from your back where your vehicle is.
When I was at the driver's side window, I could see that, but not at my car.
So when you see him walking up from your car, what is your specific concern regarding officer safety at that point in time?
Well, it's my safety and the safety of the driver. I don't know who this person is. I've never met him before. He could be peaceful, he could be violent, I just don't know. There's so many unknown factors. And I also have a responsibility to protect that driver. If I were in that driver's position, I wouldn't want to be approached by some random person recording me, interviewing me.
Did you ever ask the driver their opinion about whether they wanted him there or not?
No, my first step was...
Relevance.
Sustained.
Was your primary concern him speaking to the driver or him not backing up allegedly?
My primary concern was safety. I don't know if he was armed or what his intention was.
Do you presume someone is armed and dangerous just because they're in public?
I can't rule out that he's unarmed.
But you had no reason to believe he was armed on this occasion?
No, nobody had told me he was armed, and I didn't see any weapons visible, but he was wearing clothing that could have easily concealed weapons.
You stated your belief that the driver was entitled to privacy?
I did say that.
And what do you mean by that?
Instead of continuing to give him commands to back up, I said something different to try and help him understand. She's really not entitled to privacy, but she's entitled to safety.
So your explanation is that you said that because you were just trying to convince him to back up, not because you believed?
Yes, if I continue to give the command to back up and he's not listening, I can't expect something different to happen if I just keep saying back up.
In your police report, do you recall referencing the fact that he had due notice in your opinion of what you were commanding him to do?
Yes, when I gave him 4 commands to back up, those do notice.
Okay. But you'll agree with me, he did not have notice as to the distance you wanted him to back up, is that correct?
That's correct.
The crime of obstruction is clearly outlined in the Wilson case, and I was not obstructing. You didn't get due notice and tell me I want you to back up 21 feet. You just asked me to back up.
Approximately how long were you issuing these commands to him before you decided to detain the defendant?
Approximately 15, 20 seconds.
And your testimony is you didn't have any time during the entire back and forth to tell him a specific distance to back up to?
Not time, but no opportunity.
How so?
Well, every time I tried to speak with him, he would argue he wasn't listening at all. So if he's not understanding back up, how would he explain something that was more complex?
Well, what was preventing you from saying back up to a particular location?
First, I would want him to back up, and then if he didn't back up far enough, I would give him an exact location.
But you never did, correct?
No, I never did.
Did the defendant's verbal comments towards you influence what you decided to do that day?
No.
On the video, did you see that the point in time you decided to detain him was specifically after he made an insulting comment towards you?
That wasn't why I chose to detain him. I realized that he wasn't going to back up at that time.
His comments didn't make you angry at him?
No.
In your review of the video just now, he had both hands in front of him the entire time, is that correct?
No, at one point he reaches toward his back pocket to pull out his second phone.
Did you quickly see that it was a second phone he was going for?
Yes.
Okay. So once you see him produce the second phone in his hands, he's obviously not reaching for a weapon, is that correct?
At that time, no, he wasn't.
What time of day did this occur at?
If I remember correctly, I think it was around 4:30 in the afternoon.
And this was in a broad public place.
Yes.
Does the fact that this occurred in broad daylight in public influence your decision-making as far as issuing commands to the defendant?
It could. In this particular case, it didn't.
And why is that?
There was nobody around us other than me and the driver and DeCastro.
You testified he swatted your hand away. Is that your testimony today?
Yes, that's the best way I can describe it.
And you saw his arm do this, or you just felt it?
I saw and felt it.
Do you recall in your police report stating that you did not believe his intent was to harm you?
Yes, I wrote that.
Okay. And what is your basis for reaching that conclusion?
Well, he could have been charged with battery on a police officer, which would have been more severe. But I didn't think his intent was to hurt me, so I didn't charge him with that.
You testified today that one of the things you were concerned about was him not going over to your vehicle. Is that true?
Yes.
Will you agree with me that he actually did walk over to your vehicle at some point during the interaction?
Yes, but it wasn't reasonable, the amount of time it took him.
What would be a reasonable amount of time?
Asking him to step in front of my car and then doing so immediately.
And how fast is it immediately?
This isn't based off of time, my response, it's just based off of interaction. I had to tell him he was detained multiple times. I made it clear what he was detained for. I said he was detained for obstructing. And I gave him several commands to step in front of my car. So I would think a reasonable person would walk over to my car, and then we'd have a conversation there.
And how specifically did his presence obstruct your ability to complete the traffic stop?
Again, I don't know what his intention is. I don't know if he's armed. All I saw was him recording, which again, I had no issue with. I told him I had no issue with. At some point in time, if I were to issue a citation to the driver, my focus would be on the driver and what's inside her car. At that point, I hadn't pulled her out. I hadn't pat her down. I don't know if she has any weapons in the car or what her intent was, if there was anything underlying. So my intention on having DeCastro back up was so that I didn't have split attention. He was too close for me to have split attention.
So what are the things you stated that you were concerned about, I guess, from a safety point of view, was that he didn't identify himself? Is that true?
No, I didn't care about his identity until I had him detained.
At any point during the detention of the defendant, did you pat him down to determine he didn't have any weapons?
I did.
Okay, and when was that during the duration of the interaction?
That was immediately after handcuffing.
Okay, did you discover any weapons on him?
No, I did not.
From your police car, while he's walking up, you can essentially have a complete view of his movements and what he's doing at that point in time.
Yes.
And you never saw him during that time period before you got out of your car and reached for any weapons or anything like that?
No.
Were there other individuals around the traffic stop other than the defendant and the driver?
Not that I can remember.
Do you recall anyone walking through the scene and asking about the restaurant next door?
I don't remember that.
But your testimony is if there was someone else on the video, you would have been ordering that person to back up 21 feet?
I would have first asked them to back up, and most people do. And then if they did not comply, then I would give them a specific area to back up to.
You ordered him not to speak to the driver, is that correct?
Yes. Well, I remember asking him to back up. I don't remember if I specifically asked him not to speak to the driver. I think I may have said don't talk to her or something to that effect.
Did he speak to her before you got out of your patrol vehicle or afterwards?
Before. I saw DeCastro filming. I stayed in my vehicle and continued my business. Then when I saw him speaking to the driver, that's when I exited.
Did you see him speak to the driver after you exited the vehicle at any point?
I don't remember if he spoke to the driver after I exited.
At any point, did you hear specifically what he may have said to the driver?
No, I was too far away and it was windy.
Is your position that anytime you're engaged in a traffic stop, nobody can speak to the driver?
They can speak to them at a reasonable distance.
And is that 21 feet?
It could be shorter, it could be longer. Again, depends on the environment, totality, the circumstances.
Do you think people can easily verbally communicate at 21 feet?
No, not without shouting.
Did at some point the defendant inform you that he was a member of the press?
He did.
Did that influence any of the orders you chose to give or not give to the defendant?
No, it doesn't matter.
Why does it not? What is your basis of that statement, I guess?
Media, reporters, and standard citizens, they treat them all the same.
So you becoming aware that somebody is a member of the press does not affect your decision-making in reference to your First Amendment training?
No, and how was I to know that he was a member of the press? Whenever I interact with members of the press, they usually identify what station they're with or a group that they're with. They usually have some sort of identification, name badge, and we have a good relationship with press out here. They don't approach us the way that DeCastro did.
Are you familiar with the difference between traditional press or independent media?
Yes, but again, independent media would approach us more respectfully than DeCastro.
Is your opinion that traditional media has different rights than new media, independent media?
Objection, Your Honor. At this point, I think we're well beyond the scope of.
Sustained.
Thank you.
So your testimony is, if I recall correctly, that you received First Amendment training when you initially went through your officer training.
Yes.
And then you received one follow-up after that.
I can't, no, it was more than one. I don't know exactly how many. Typically that training is annual.
And your testimony, just to reiterate, this is the first time you've experienced a First Amendment issue of this nature in your career?
Objection, I believe I objected to that question when it was posed as like a violent encounter and it was sustained. And I also objected on the grounds of relevance. As the court indicated, what we're concerned about is his interaction with the defendant specifically. And so I object.
Sustained, I'm only concerned about this interaction.
Do you recall during your interactions with the defendant that you told him that you believed First Amendment auditors often pull out guns and shoot people?
I didn't say that they often do that.
Do you recall what you said?
I don't. I would have said that he was a stranger to me and that officers get ambushed all the time. It could have been a First Amendment auditor. It could have been a regular citizen. It could have been a cook from one of the places nearby. I wouldn't have specifically said that First Amendment auditors are at higher risk.
What kind of bozo clown world are we creating in this country? That cops are scared of guys with cameras. It's ridiculous. And also, according to the LVPVA, the videos on YouTube are the Las Vegas Policemen's Protection Association, which are created by the district attorney. They've been taught about First Amendment auditors. He's not supposed to touch me.
And again, just to reiterate, your testimony is that...
Objection. I mean, anytime it's prefaced as just to reiterate, I feel like I should object on an asked and answered grounds. And I'm not, just to hear it, but it just sounds like a reiteration of the questions that have been previously asked. So my objection is asked and answered.
I'm going to ask this question before I rule on your objection.
Again, I'm just trying to clarify because I think this point was ambiguous, but do you recall the defendant telling you that he was a member of the press during the interaction with the defendant?
Asked and answered.
Sustained.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You redirect?
No. Thank you.
Thank you, officer. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Officer, stand by the ante-room, please.
Does the state rest?
At this point, we do.
I'm triggered already, so I do a horrible job as well. When I go on the stand, I didn't testify what I was normally testified to. My lawyer hadn't submitted my video into evidence, so there's no breadcrumb for me to follow. There's no trail for me to follow, where I would have gone into some legal theory of I have a right to be there. It's just messed up.
Does the defense have any witnesses?
Your Honor, I call Jose DeCastro.
Yeah.
Raise your right hand to be sworn by the clerk. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated.
Mr. DeCastro, before you testify, I'm obligated to inform you that you have the right to testify in this proceeding, but you also have the right to remain silent. And should you choose to remain silent, I may not hold that against you in making my decision. Do you understand that?
I do.
Do you still wish to testify?
Yes, I do.
All right, please go ahead.
You have a YouTube channel?
Yes, I do.
Can you give some insight into what that channel was about?
Objection, relevance.
What's the relevance?
Your Honor, the relevance is that we're presenting a First Amendment defense, and the defendant is a member of the press. There's different standards for First Amendment rulings where there is public policy at issue. He can give insight into that.
I'm going to allow it for a bit and see where it goes.
Yes, I do have I do have a YouTube channel, and the reason I have a YouTube channel is because of how many cops kill people every year, how many cops hurt, maim, torture, rape, and kill people every single year. It's such an epidemic that the rest of the world, I get thousands of emails saying, only in America does this happen. I started filming cops because when I was cheated in 2002 and
Objection at this point, relevance,
well, this is the reason I'm a member of the press.
this narrative.
So can you ask him a question?
Yes, Your Honor. What type of films do you make for your YouTube channel?
I only film police in their official capacity. I'm known across the country and across the world.
And why do you engage in that type of filming?
So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Mead, to direct your questions about the incident in question.
The reason I was filming Mr. Bourque that day.
Objection, Your Honor. Oh, sorry.
So
There wasn't a question posed, so I'm not here what he was.
Mr. DeCastro, on the dating question, why did you approach that vehicle?
I was filming that cop because that's what I do for a living. I am a member of the press, and I invoked my right to be press. I always invoke my right to be press within the first 10 seconds of engaging with police, and I have thousands of videos that prove this.
So this is how you make money.
This is not how specifically I make money. I make money from selling legal documents to people.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you recall the officer telling you to back up?
Yes, I do.
And what did you do after he told you to back up?
I took a couple steps back. I just showed him that I was willing to back up a little bit. However, if I may, in Arizona, they created a 10-foot law.
Objection, relevance. We're not in Arizona. It's the state of Nevada.
So I'm going to allow it because I think that goes to why he kept saying 10 feet in the video, even though I will take judicial notice that you're not in the state of Arizona, you're in the state of Nevada.
Well, a federal judge struck it down, Your Honor, and what...
Stop. Can you ask him a question?
Yes, Your Honor. Approximately how many feet did you back up?
I backed up a foot or two. I was at least 10 feet away from that car that the driver was pulled over in.
And when you spoke to the driver, what did you say?
Just after she was okay. The reason I film police is because they abuse people so often.
Do you recall the officer telling you not to speak with the driver?
Yes.
And did you make any statements to the driver after that command was given?
Absolutely not.
Did the officer ever give you a specific distance to back up to?
No, he didn't.
If he did, would you have complied with that?
Sure.
Did you believe you were complying with the officer's commands?
100%. I also informed him I'm a member of the press, I'm a constitutional law scholar, that this is what I do.
Do you recall the officer explaining to you why he decided to arrest you?
There's several parts to the reason why he said he was going to arrest me. He said he was going to arrest me because I wouldn't turn my head a certain direction. If I didn't turn and face the car with my head, that he would place me under arrest instead of just giving me a ticket.
Do you recall him explaining why he decided to detain you before he arrested you?
He decided to detain me because he said I was obstructing, which, from my understanding, is a physical act where I would have to get in the way. He said that the driver deserves privacy. I believe my First Amendment rights are not up for feelings.
Did he explain to you that the basis of your detention was related primarily to the issue of privacy or the issue of you backing up?
Well, I think from the officer's testimony, we can see that he's scared of the driver, scared of me, scared of everything. They teach them to be afraid of everything. So I had 2 cameras out. It's identified as a member of the press. I'm sorry, repeat the question. I want to get it specific for the record.
Sure. The question was, did the officer explain to you that the basis of your detention was because of you not backing up or because of the privacy issue of the driver?
It was both. He said that, he told me to back up. I backed up a little bit. Then he said, she deserves privacy. And then I told him to go get in your car, little doggy, and write your ticket. And at that point, his face turned beet red, and his veins in his neck stuck out because we were over 20 feet away. And you had to holler to hear each other because the wind was probably 30 miles an hour.
Did you at any point attempt to hit any of the officers involved?
No, absolutely not.
Did you intentionally swat any of the officers?
Absolutely not. He was giving me unlawful commands. I should not have been detained after identified as a member of the press. If he ever reached a hand out towards me, I wrestle and teach MMA, and I have for 30 years. So it's just a natural reaction as I'm retreating from somebody. If I may have put my hand up, as he said, as he testified himself, I certainly am a law-abiding citizen. I don't break the law. So I would not have tried to assault an officer under any circumstances.
Is it possible that during the interaction there was inadvertent contact between you and the officer?
Sure, he decided to go hands-on with me when he was giving me unlawful commands. And there was absolutely no reason for it. I was willing to comply with anything he asked within reason, because I don't want to have a fist fight with another man on the street.
Do you recall the officer ordering you to go to his patrol vehicle?
I do.
And what did you do in response to that?
Initially, I told him no, but then when he began to get physical with me and start to grab me and touch me, I said, okay, I'll go over to your car. His car was 35 feet away. I then led him to his car. It's on video, you can see it. I walked right up to his car, and then he insisted still on grabbing me. After he saw me pull out an additional phone, which that's what press people do. We have lots of cameras on us.
And did you inform the officer that you were a member of the press?
Oh, several times. It's in the transcripts. I've transcribed them myself. Several times I told him I'm a member of the press.
And did you explain to the officer that you have a background in constitutional law?
Yes, I told him I'm a constitutional law scholar, which was a moniker given to me by other people who are also, they have their own channels, their own press, and that's what some other lawyers on another channel called me 3 years ago. And I since adapted the moniker.
And just to get some, I guess, further background, were you looking for police to report on this particular day?
No, the cops hide on the side of the road to pull people over. It's pretty regular in our country. I was just in the parking lot there. I saw that Mr. Bourque had somebody pulled over, concerned for her safety. I began to film.
And why do you think that law enforcement traffic stops are relevant to the public?
That's where most people get killed.
Objection relevance. Stating that question. Move to strike.
Stating.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
State.
I have no questions for this witness.
Thank you. Sir, you may step down. This is defense trust?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Any argument by the state?
Your Honor, the state asks you to find the defendant guilty of both the obstructing a public officer as well as resisting a public officer charged against him. The video very adequately portrays, and I don't think it's disputed by the defendant, what the context was of the interaction with the officer. I would venture to say that had the defendant just complied with the original order to not engage with the driver and to back up, we wouldn't be here. He wouldn't have found himself further engaging with Officer Bourque. This is not a First Amendment issue. As you heard over and over and over again on video, Officer Bourque did not have a problem with the defendant recording. It's not a First Amendment issue. It's an officer safety issue. Here you have an officer who conducted a lawful traffic stop. You saw the nature of the stop. There was no animosity between the officer and the driver. It was rather peaceful. They were engaged, banter back and forth. He would have, as he testified, he was trying to determine whether he was going to cite her or let her go with a warning. And then you have an individual, the defendant, introduce himself to a situation. Traffic stops, Your Honor, are inherently dangerous, particularly in crowded parking lots. I guess anywhere, I would venture to say. This officer was reasonable in thinking that anyone who would approach in the manner that the defendant approached his scene would have a reason to fear for his safety, or at least be suspicious of this individual's motives coming in. The officer had no problem with the recording. The officer had no problem with the defendant observing. It was when he inserted himself into this lawful detention that was occurring with the Hyundai driver that the officer turned his attention onto the defendant. This is not a First Amendment issue. This is an individual who took what he perceived to be his rights too far. The officer was well within his right, as well as acting reasonably when he asked him to back up. That 21-foot rule, it's appropriate. He said that was the training that they received in terms of the distance that's allowed for someone who means to do them harm. It's a threat assessment. We don't know when the defendant approached whether he had a gun concealed, whether he had a knife concealed, whether he had other weapons. And you'll hear multiple times in the video, Officer Bourque yelling, "Stop reaching, stop reaching." This is an unknown, when defense counsel asked Officer Bourque all of these questions about how it is that you do this, and Officer Bourque kept responding, it depends on the situation, it depends on the totality of the circumstances. Here was an officer acting alone, individually, engaged one-to-one with a driver. That he had no problem with. You insert another individual who enters the scene in the manner that the defendant did, and now this officer's attention is going to be divided. He had every reason to fear for his safety as well as that of the driver. Again, if he had just complied with the officer's commands or demands to back up, and a lot was made about, hey, he didn't have an opportunity to tell the defendant exactly how far back. As the officer testified, even just with the, hey, back up, the defendant didn't back up, not willingly. That's why the officer had to continue to engage with him and force him into the situation. Had he complied, he would not have been charged with obstruction. Had he complied initially, he would not have been charged with the resisting. The officer was, you are going to have to assess credibility. There's nothing in the video or Officer Bourque's testimony that would cause the court to question his veracity or his intention for that matter. He was very honest in that he didn't believe the defendant wasn't trying to harm him necessarily with the SWAT. That's why the defendant wasn't charged with the battery on a protected person or police officer. But that SWAT, Your Honor, I would argue, was meant to resist. At that point in time, the officer was trying to detain him and subsequently arrest him on the obstruction as depicted in the video. And so at this point, I think we proved by beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did hinder Officer Bourque's investigation and detention of the Hyundai driver, and that he resisted the officer's arrest and or attempt to arrest him. And so we would ask that you find the defendant guilty of both.
Right, thank you. Ben?
Yes, Your Honor. So first of all, you cannot obstruct an unlawful order. I disagree with the state that this is not a First Amendment issue. The First Amendment in this context actually has two parts. There's the filming and the right to film within a reasonable distance. The case law in all the federal circuits, Your Honor, there's no 21 feet rule that's been approved by any court of which I'm aware. That there is a 10-foot rule. That seems to be the rule that is applied by most of the federal circuits in interpreting the First Amendment. I submitted a bench brief that kind of goes through that issue if the court's had a chance to review that.
I don't have that. Okay, when did you submit it?
It was submitted yesterday, Your Honor.
I mean, at this point, I would move to strike because it's untimely, but I got it this morning when I walked into court.
I like Michael Mee a lot. He's a really nice guy, really sweet person. That doesn't change the fact that he didn't get the First Amendment brief submitted, that he didn't file a motion to dismiss the case before the case began. He didn't present case law that shows that I have a right to film cops before the trial ever happened in pretrial hearings. He didn't do the things he was supposed to do. And so there's a problem. In the appeal brief, you can read it, it's the appeal brief that will be heard on July 10th. The lawyer that I have now, my appellate attorney, he brings up ineffective counsel because it was ineffective. It just simply was. And I don't want to beat anybody up, but there were some bad mistakes made here. And then when that judge searched me, Michael Mee didn't object to me being searched. And then when she sentenced me to 6 months in jail, he didn't object and say, my client's not remorseful because he didn't do anything wrong, and he shouldn't be put in jail for 6 months. I just don't think that Michael Mee is a trial attorney. And number two, I don't think it should have gone to trial. I think Michael Mee should have submitted that First Amendment brief way before, 2 days before the trial, and he should have submitted a motion to dismiss the case before it began.
Go ahead.
So the officer's testimony that there's essentially this 21-foot distance where anybody can charge an officer and cause physical harm to an officer, if that is applied universally, Your Honor, it totally diminishes and violates the First Amendment. That is, as the officer testified, a 21-foot radius that he can attempt to impose. I believe his testimony was anytime there's not an obstacle between a person and somebody that law enforcement is interacting with. And that's just not what the law requires, Your Honor. The First Amendment gives their media, new media, old media, it gives individuals the right to film government agents. There's no dispute that that's the requirement, and if the officer is applying this 21-foot circumference to all law enforcement interactions, he's effectively eliminated the ability to film law enforcement going about their duties. The commands to not talk to the driver are also not based on any actual legal justification. There's no right to privacy in public, whether you're engaged with law enforcement or not. There's no requirement or no statute, no law that citizens can't interact with drivers that are interacting with law enforcement. So what's taken place here, Your Honor, is that this officer has taken it upon himself to essentially act as the legislature and created these rules that have no basis in any law and in fact are contrary to the First Amendment. Again, he can't obstruct an unlawful demand, so there is no obstruction of justice here. Resisting arrest, Your Honor, the court can see the video. Essentially what happened is he walked over to the front of the vehicle. There was some dispute about why he was being detained, and that was discussed. The case law in that area, Your Honor, is that if it's an unlawful arrest, which it was in this case because they're essentially arresting him for violating these unlawful orders that they're pronouncing. Again, the case law is you can passively resist an unlawful arrest, and that's all that occurred here, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Mr. DeCastro, please stand. The problem with the argument that your attorney makes is it completely fails to consider the safety of the officer and the safety of the driver. The officer doesn't know who you are, and the driver doesn't know who you are. And you don't have any right to interfere with that officer doing his investigation and deciding if he wants to issue a ticket to this driver. And you also don't have any business approaching the driver. The driver didn't ask you for help. The driver didn't say, help, help, you know. You didn't see an altercation happening between the officer and this driver. The officer didn't protest that you were filming. There's no problem with filming. You can film, it's fine, all right? But you did interfere with his investigation. You did interfere with his ability to do his job. You did put him in a position where he is concerned for his safety and the safety of the driver. So I believe the state's met their burden beyond reasonable doubt. I'm going to find you guilty of obstructing a public officer and resisting a public officer. So I'd like to hear from the state and then your attorney prior to sentencing.
And the judge says, well, the driver didn't ask you for help. Well, neither did George Floyd. George Floyd didn't ask any of those people for help to be filming. But if I'd been filming the cop beating on somebody, then I'd be a hero. But because no one was beating on anybody, then I should be arrested. Which is it? Which kind of country do we live in here? It's absolutely preposterous. And then, so the judge buys that there's some magic 21-foot rule, says that the driver didn't ask for my help, and then she creates this facade that there's a 21-foot rule, but there's not.
Your Honor, in terms of sentencing, I would ask that our defendant enter and complete an impulse control class I would ask that the court levy a $500 fine or the equivalent in community service. I would ask that the defendant be ordered to stay out of trouble for the pendency of the case. And I would ask for a 90-day suspended sentence. And that's on as to each count to one concurrent. That's our request.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I'm asking the court to sentence the defendant to credit for time served for these offenses. Even if the court concludes, and the court did conclude that he didn't have the right to do what he did, I think the court can see that he sincerely believed that he had the right to do so. That's based on his past experiences and the training he's received in reference to the First Amendment. I don't think there was any intent from the defendant to engage in any wrongdoing in this case, Your Honor. And that being the case, especially because of the public policy interests at issue.
So when you say he doesn't wish to engage in any wrongdoing, it seems to me from observing him in the video that he wants this. He wants to get arrested. He wants to get into an altercation with police officers. He welcomes this. This helps his YouTube channel. He called the officers here in my courtroom today pigs. He called and he's nodding his head up and down. So apparently he hates every law enforcement officer in the United States. All right, please stand up, sir. Are you finished with your request for credit for time served?
I would just emphasize, Your Honor, that the defendant testified and he sincerely believes that he is providing a public service when he reviews and films these incidents. I understand the court may have a different view of that, but when we're talking about First Amendment public policy issues such as supervising people involved in government, I think that is something the court can take into consideration, not to have a chilling effect on that. I'll spit on that, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. DeCastro, please stand. I hereby sentence you to 90 days in the Clark County Detention Center on count 1, 90 days in the Clark County Detention Center on count 2, to run consecutive for a total of 180 days in custody. Thank you.
Sentence suspended or?
Oh no, we're going to start right now.
Can you put two please? I'm back to the shoulder check. This is travesty of justice. Unbelievable. I don't like police. They'll put me in jail for half a year. How long have I been in the year? Just get in the car. Yeah, it's in the change. Can I get my keys off us? My keys are in the car garage. They're inside my. Can I read it? No, in the briefcase. Yeah.
I'll get your stuff.
It's a minivan, so I'll pop on the place on it. Get a hold of my assistant, James.
So there you have it. The things he did when she was looking at sentencing him was terrible. You know, I think that's where the sentence came down harsh, because the DA wasn't looking for a harsh sentence. I think he could have walked from any jail time, but he would have, got a conviction against him. Okay, fine. But thumbs up and, basically confirming the judge's suspicions that he likes these interactions and just trying to basically have at it with the cops, and he hates all police. Well, now, she looks at this as willfulness, I think. I mean, I don't know. I'm not her. And then she sees what he did in the courtroom to her own staff, who are police. So in her mind, now she's kind of dropping the hammer. Not much his defense lawyer can do about something like that.
So when she was talking up there and saying, oh, he wants the smoke, he hates all cops, I gave her a thumbs up. But really what I was saying was, whatever you say, lady. And that's pretty much what I was saying. And then I think I even said, you got it. Because she just was going on and on and on. And then, when she sentenced me to 6 months in jail, and they come over and put me in the torture cuffs right away, there's like this flush of blood that goes over your face. And it's just this surreal moment where you're being put in torture cuffs. And then they put you in the torture cuffs right there in the courtroom. And then they take you to a little side panel, and they push this side panel. When they open the door, it's a completely different environment, a completely different setting. It's a room that's like 12 foot by 12 foot with 12 foot ceilings. and there's nothing in there but you and white walls with high-pitched fluorescent lights. And there's nothing in there but you. And you would never think this little room right there exists right off the courtroom, but it does. And it looks nothing like the courtroom. And I'm standing in there in these torture cuffs with my full suit and tie, and then they bring Michael Lee back there, and he looks like he swallowed a cat. So I ask him, "Are you okay?" I'm just shell-shocked.
You have 1 minute left.
And so it's just this really surreal, horrible feeling. And I just couldn't believe it was actually happening. I went through about a week of really hardcore PTSD, trying to intake, just trying to accept that I'm going to be locked away, put in a jumpsuit, and given an inmate number, which I've never had before. I've never been arrested and sentenced to jail. Because I've been to jail lots of times, arrested for no reason, and I beat those charges. But unfortunately, with the combination of this judge, ineffective counsel, and a kangaroo court, I'm in jail now. And it's absolutely horrible, dude. Absolutely horrible. I wouldn't wish this upon anybody. I wouldn't wish this upon that horrible, biased judge, Ann Zimmerman. I wouldn't wish her this treatment. It's horrible what I'm living through. It's the worst. I'm not sure if you got the 4 cases that we scraped from Judge Zimmerman's past, but she didn't put anybody in jail that went to trial for obstruction. The 4 cases previously were Vondell Kelly, February 2023, charged with the same NRS code 192.190. Jeremiah Marshall, arrested January 2023, court date May 2023. Shannon Watley, arrested August 2023, court date October 2023. And Richard Hernandez, arrested November 2023, court date was in May of 2024. All of them charged with NRS code 192.190. None of them got jail time, but I did. So I shouldn't be in jail whatsoever. But the presentation of the video on that laptop, upside down and only behind the judge's bench, it was ridiculous. There's no way that should be considered a fair trial at all whatsoever. It's not a fair trial.
It's hard to decide which part is more troubling. The fact that Chille DeCastro received a 6-month jail sentence for an obstruction charge, or the lack of attention from the First Amendment auditing community regarding this clear injustice. This should be a cause for concern for all activists who filmed the police. In case you missed it, Chille was arrested for simply filming the police, and his charge was based on a vague statute of obstruction because he didn't back up far enough during his interaction with the police. Many attorneys, including myself, believe that this statute, which accuses individuals of obstructing a police officer, is unconstitutional. This case hits close to home for me. Chille DeCastro has always been a great friend, and it pains me to see him in this situation. He has been a dedicated advocate, helping numerous victims of police misconduct and raising funds for their legal expenses. It's only fair that we return the favor. If you have the means, I kindly request that you consider donating to Chille DeCastro's GoFundMe. Knowing Chille, he's prepared for a long battle, so any contributions to his GoFundMe would be greatly appreciated.
A self-proclaimed First Amendment auditor and YouTuber will remain in jail while he appeals a 180-day sentence. RJ's Lena Bleets explains why his bail was denied.
Jose DeCastro was sentenced to 180 days in jail last month by Las Vegas Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman for obstructing a police officer and resisting arrest. The 49-year-old was accused of interfering with a Metropolitan Police Department officer during a traffic stop by refusing to back up when he was filming. In a hearing today, DeCastro was looking to receive bail while he appeals his conviction, but that request was denied. While in jail, DeCastro has called into a live stream hosted on his YouTube channel where he talked about Zimmerman and stated, quote, "I do not know how she can sleep at night." He also said he took, quote, "full responsibility for being sent to jail."
A YouTuber is calling on his supporters in a newly posted video to petition a Las Vegas judge for his release after he was recently jailed by her.
We have scraped the data and analyzed the last 2,000 cases of Judge Ann Zimmerman. We have identified a dozen cases that went back to a bench trial. A bench trial means that Judge Zimmerman is the judge, jury, and executioner. And so far, we have 3 exact cases that are the same as my charges, the same NRS codes. In the past year, this judge has given these 3 defendants impulse training classes, and then the misdemeanor would fall off their record. The data will show her consistency and that she broke her principles, putting me in jail. Judge Ann Zimmerman, release me from this jail at once, please.
49-year-old Jose DeCastro was sentenced to 6 months by Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman after he was found guilty of obstructing justice for interfering with a police traffic stop. For more details on what was said in the video, you can visit lvrj.com.
An incarcerated individual at Clark County Detention Center, Las Vegas, Nevada. This call is not private. It will be recorded and may be monitored.
I'm living in this crazy world right now of this jail, and I've been here for almost 2 months, and I have 2 months more to go before the appeal brief is even heard on July 10th. And then when that appeal brief is heard on July 10th, the judge may say, okay, I'll take it under consideration. I'll give you my written response within 180 days. It's just insane. If she denies the appeal, then it goes before the Nevada State Supreme Court, and there's 7 judges on the Nevada State Supreme Court. So if she denies the appeal, then that means that we'll get Nevada State Supreme Court law that can't arrest me for obstructing for filming in pop. So it'll only work to our benefit, but then I'll have to be in jail for a week or 2 longer after July 10th.